everybody, how's it going? This is Edan of lightcycleastrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we have a very special episode. This week is featuring a synodic reset with the planet Mars in the sign of Scorpio. What is a synodic reset? That is when the Sun and Mars come together by conjunction. This time it's happening in the sign of Scorpio, but this only happens every 2 years. So it's a very special phenomenon between two planets where we get a kind of metaphorical death and rebirth of Mars. Now, every 2 years we get a metaphorical death and rebirth of Mars, where there's going to be a kind of Mars cycle that starts over, that develops, and then comes back in on itself. But this is a really special one because it's happening in one of Mars's natural temples. We kick off the week with a new moon in Scorpio, and this precedes a Mars reset in Scorpio at the end of the week. So this is a very heavy Scorpio themed week that is having implications that stretch out for a couple of years. So we're going to spend some time talking about the archetypal meaning of maybe what a Mars reset in Scorpio could fundamentally be representing, a few different ideas or concepts that it may be about. And then we'll jump into rising sign horoscopes. We want to plug this into your rising sign, but I do recommend watching the beginning of the video where we go into the archetypal meaning of the Mars reset itself, so that way, if I don't totally nail exactly what this is about based on a few of the house topics I'm working with, you'll be able to take the concept of the archetypal meaning of the reset and sort of see how maybe some of those house topics could be connecting to it. So we'll get into this here in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave me some comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear your guys' reflections. And if you would like to get a reading from me, you can always go to lightcycleastrology.com. They make great Christmas presents and they're affordable, and the schedule is only 1 to 2 weeks out. So usually we can fit people in every couple of weeks or so. So that's at lightcycleastrology.com if you want to check those out. Okay, well, let's get into what we're covering today, the great Mars reset that is coming on the heels of a new moon in Scorpio here. So let's pull up the real-time clock and we'll take a look at how the week starts out here with this new moon. So we have a new moon coming through Scorpio at about 9:28 a.m. Universal Time. And one of the features of this new moon that is really, really potent is that it stands in opposition to Uranus at about 21 degrees of Taurus. So you do get this theme that is really almost like foretelling, right? You have a new moon in Scorpio in Mars's temple, but it stands in opposition with a planet that represents breakthroughs or chaos or innovation. It's kind of like a wild card that breaks the mold or does something interesting, does something out of the blue or out of the ordinary. For me, this new moon coming through in Scorpio, yes, it's going to be about the initial kickoff of the new game that is starting with the Mars reset over the next month or so. So there's going to be this heavily baked in sense of what this Mars reset is all about right away with the lunation cycle ahead. And it's going to be, I believe, about breaking up something that has been there for a while that is maybe locked into position somehow. When you see a new moon opposing Uranus, it does come with that signature of I might not want things to change, but for things to keep going in the long run. One of the major themes of this Mars reset that we'll be talking about here in a moment is just exactly that motif of, in order for something to last the long haul, there needs to be incremental things that are broken up and reordered or put back into place in a different way or something like that. And it staves off total and permanent entropy of a system, essentially. So that's a big motif we're going to get into here in a moment. But this new moon is speaking to the beginning of that process where, in ancient astrology, the moon was said to be depressed in the sign of Scorpio or fallen. So could there be some general themes around shocking or things that come out of the blue that are not so great, some fortune or misfortune that comes through? Now, it doesn't have to be like the worst thing in the world, but could there be something that sort of makes you go, oh man, I really wish that wouldn't have happened? That's going to be hard to get that back up. Some kind of misfortune might come in for some of us that really is, of course, something we don't want, but it's as if there is just general, like, oh man, we're going to have to fix this, work on this, bring this back up. This misfortune or crisis, this minor or major moment of crisis, is the precise thing that leads to you beginning to see things from a different perspective. Or maybe somebody comes along that really interjects chaos into the situation. But again, there's something being broken up here. We're on the verge of like a new game that is being started with Mars over the course of the next 2 years. And this new moon really is speaking to the things that have been locked into place, kind of, the wild card coming in and sort of busting it apart in some way. That's the way I would read the new moon, at least. There are, of course, going to be different interpretations for the new moon, but that's one thing that I could see as a possibility for sure. Now, if we take the week forward here, what you'll notice is that after the new moon, by Tuesday, we get the moon into Sagittarius, and now we're beginning a new lunation cycle, right? And this is really fascinating how, as we get closer to the first quarter moon, you see the sun getting closer and closer to Mars. So the very beginning of the week really is if you think about a synodic reset as a dying of the planet, and then when they come together, when the sun and Mars come together, it's the rebirth, and then the baby, planet is growing from that point forward. But we're on the death side the first half of the week, where we really do see Mars getting weaker and weaker, going through harder and harder times, really struggling and, going through a dying phase, right? So we get strong motifs of a new moon, something beginning while something is ending, right? We get these dying motifs of Mars coming through. Remember, the new moon was in Mars's temple too. So very fascinating. But as we take the week forward here, Thursday, Friday, when we get to Friday, Saturday, this is really when we get to the exact conjunction. I'll put the label on here. It is Saturday, November 18th. The sun conjoins Mars at about 5:50 a.m. Universal Time. And look how close. One thing I did want to show you is look how close the moon now is to moving into the first quarter phase. I just think that this is fascinating. So if we go past the cazimi moment of Mars and the sun, we get about 2 days after the cazimi, we are now in the first quarter moon. General interpretations, the moon in Saturn's daytime sign of Aquarius, square Uranus and square the sun, might be a moment of crisis that is inspiring forward thinking. You think about the moon in Aquarius. Aquarius has that oftentimes that forward looking, forward thinking, bringing innovation or something kind of idealistic or future oriented. So there's this motif. Again, we have the new moon making that opposition to a planet of innovation and breakthroughs, that planet Uranus. And then we have the first quarter moon, which generally represents some kind of moment of crisis where you need to take action or do something or build something or manage something. But it's a time of development and building that is in Saturn's sign, right? So you get this, again, you get these motifs of like this forward thinking, this innovation. But that is pretty much the week, the three major things that are kind of coming through. So let's just for a moment, I want to bring up my astronomy program, Starry Night Pro here. And I just want to show you guys this from the astronomy standpoint here. Okay, so here we have, this is just November 14th. So I'm just showing you Mars in its orbit. I've got this zoomed in way far, so the sun looks huge. But what's so crazy is that you see Mars going by about the 16th. Mars enters behind the face of the sun and is behind the sun for, I don't know, maybe a couple of days, day and a half, something like that, and then emerges out by 18th or the 19th of November. So you get a couple of days where Mars is in this cazimi. So let's get into the archetypal meaning or what Mars resets could be about, especially or in particular in the sign of Scorpio, we have a general interpretation from a Mars reset for the next 2 years. Okay, now I'm going to give a few basic ones that are kind of more minor interpretations, and then we'll get into the heart of what I think that this is really about. So we have some minor interpretations for a Mars reset in Scorpio, such as a symbolic time when past obstacles fade away and new obstacles are about to begin. This is because Mars represented misfortune or obstacles in ancient astrology. So when Mars goes through a death and then is reborn, that could symbolically represent that problems of the past are somehow fading away, but there's about to be a cycle ahead where you might have to tackle some new challenges, but they'll be different than the old challenges. So that's just a very light or kind of general minor interpretation that you could get from a Mars reset. Another one, though, has to do with, we always think of Mars as a planet of energy, right? Energy, motivation, willpower. So could we have energy, motivation, willpower being reset? What can we do to give ourselves more energy? One thing that this Mars reset may represent is a kind of moment where we go through a process of saying, I need to figure out how do I maintain energy? How do I keep my energy up? What do I have to do? Is there something I have to eliminate? Are there people sucking the energy out of my life that maybe I need to not be around so much? Or are there relationships or circumstances at work or whatever it is? Is there something that says, it's an important time to reevaluate how to keep up your power? And how do you secure power and go forward feeling powerful, right? Or having a sense of motivation or energy or willpower or something like that. And so this could be a process where one way you could read this is that we're dealing with a way of trying to understand energy and what is taking it, what we spend it on, how can we adjust things to have more of it or make it more efficient or something along the lines of like motivation, energy, willpower. Those kinds of things could be general themes or topics that come up for this Mars reset at this time. And the third one is something is passing away. Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, a sign that was said to be the gateway of the gods by ancient astrologers. This is because the sun in Capricorn goes through the winter solstice, the lowest declination that it has to the earth. And then from that point forward, it rises up higher in declination after the winter solstice. So that is a symbol that if the sun is representing spirit and the world is representing matter, that's a time of year where one of the general things about Capricorn is that the ancients called it the gateway of the gods because spirit was leaving matter. Well, one way to look at that is simply that, what happens when our soul leaves our body. Our body is the matter and our soul is like the spirit. That's the time of death, right? So one general interpretation that you could read from a Mars reset in Scorpio, having that very central scorpionic meaning to it, is simply that there is something passing away right now. We have Mars exalted in a sign where the ancients recognized that the soul was leaving the body, metaphorically speaking, the sun rising up, happening in a temple where darkness is growing in the sign of Scorpio, right? We have a place where Scorpio is is the middle sign of the fall season where darkness is steadily increasing. So there is a lot of darkness, a lot of death at that time that is on the rise, on the increase. And you have Mars as a planet that is exalted in this sign where the spirit leaves the body. So when you combine some of these archetypal things together, you get a sense that this could simply be a time where there is something dying, there is something leaving, something is passing away. So for some of us, it could really just be speaking to a moment where there is something or someone or something big in our lives that is leaving right now. That's just a general broad interpretation that you could make with a very special Mars reset in the sign of Scorpio in particular. So those are some of the minor things you might say this Mars reset is going to be representing. But what I think that this really is about is a little bit deeper than that. For instance, Scorpio is like sleep for the body in a sense. It brings the possibility of rejuvenation. If you think about why do humans sleep? We don't just keep going hour after hour, day after day without rest, because what would happen is the whole system would just collapse permanently, right? We would just, work ourselves to death, and that would be it. Sleep is required for rejuvenation. Taking things apart a little at a time keeps the whole system from permanently entering entropy. So there is the necessity to, in the fall time, for the leaves to fall off of the tree and lay on the ground, and then the microbes come and they break all the leaves apart. And it's as if things need to be broken down into little pieces so that later on they can be like reformed into some kind of new vital form or new system that has the ability to go forward with vitality. If you didn't get that that period where things are broken down, where the darkness comes in and there's death around you, it's as if the whole thing would just be like a person going without sleep, right? We would just keep moving and doing and working and being active, and then what would happen is it's like the system can't maintain itself. It just falls down dead, and that's it. So like Scorpio is a little bit like sleep. It gives the chance for to enter a dark period of dying and decay, but the dying and decay is for the purpose of bringing things into a place where they can eventually be re-uploaded into a place that makes it possible for rejuvenation to happen down the road. So destruction makes rejuvenation possible, which makes the continuation of life possible. We all participate on the battlefield of war, a place where we endeavor to bring death to an enemy and where an enemy might bring death to us. So this is really where you get into some pretty interesting dynamics with whatever house that Scorpio is occupying in your birth chart, which we're going to get into here in a moment. But think about what house Scorpio occupies in your birth chart and imagine that that is kind of the battlefield, Mars being the archetypal warrior. The archetypal warrior goes off to battle, and he is on the battlefield, and he is in this realm where at any moment he might lose his life, or at any moment he might cut something down and take life from somebody else. So there, we don't often find ourselves in that place where there is death around us. We're sort of on the knife's edge of life and death. That's Scorpio, and whatever house that Scorpio is occupying in your birth chart, that is where that realm of things that break down and where we find destruction, where we find things dying, where we find things taken apart so that there can be rejuvenation. But it's also where we might need to stand guard against something dangerous, or take life, or eliminate a threat, or stand guard against something. So there's this whole death, standing guard, protection, destruction. That whole motif is surrounding the house that Scorpio occupies in your birth chart. And you can sort of imagine it kind of like the place where we all participate in battle, on the battlefield. We're all in a place somewhere in our lives where we might have to kill or be killed, protect against danger. You know what I mean? Bring elimination or death to something in order to save something else. So we'll get into more of that in a moment here, but we are naturally aligned to this battlefield by whichever house Scorpio occupies in our chart. And we know that planets traveling through their domiciles are effective in bringing about their natural signification. So this is a really powerful Mars reset for one reason, and that is, again, because this is happening in one of Mars's own temples. So this is wholly about Mars significations. This isn't Mars like last time we had the Mars reset in the sign of Libra. So Mars was resetting himself through a Venusian kind of realm. This is Mars resetting himself in a Mars realm. That's incredible. So this is almost speaking to whichever house that Scorpio is occupying. There has been this lifelong experience with scorpionic motifs for those particular house topics. So for instance, let's say that Scorpio is occupying your third house, a house we know that connects to siblings, relatives, the everyday environment, the mental habits or ways that we think about things, and so on and so forth. But the battlefield of death and destruction, of protection, of elimination, of things being destroyed, you've had a lifelong relationship with the destructive part of yourself and those particular house topics or areas of life that are falling into that house. But having a Mars reset at this time in that house speaks to the karma of that lifelong relationship with those house topics, to that scorpionic motif coming to the forefront. And again, this a Mars reset might only happen in Scorpio once or twice in your life. So could this be a time where those house topics, it's almost like they're really pushed up to the forefront over the next 2 years or so? The journey that Mars is going through is really significant at this time. And it's like if there were certain fates or karmas that were built into the birth chart for that particular house, it's going to be really activated over the course of the next 2 years because of this Mars reset. So it's really significant, in other words. We enter a 2-year cycle that awakens the karma of the Scorpio house in our charts. This will bring in the themes related to those house topics that are either going to be about things that we need to protect, things that we need to destroy, eliminate, to bring something into a space of entropy in order for it to become rejuvenated at some point down the road. But it also could be, Mars, it likes to take risks, especially for entertainment. Mars is kind of a risky adventurer, a planet that will have you racing your car down the road or riding motocross or rock climbing or something like that. So this could also be speaking to a period ahead where there is more risk taking in that particular dimension of life that those house topics are relating to. And of course, it's also we talk about Mars as being a planet of action, willpower, energy, or activity. So could this be just broadly speaking to whatever house that this is falling in? There's going to be kind of an amped up, activity of those house topics, or there's more willpower, or there's like a big interjection of energy that you're going to be putting into that area of life, as it were. So let's pull up the clock again, and we're going to go ahead and put Aries on the ascendant now that we have kind of given a few of the motifs for this Mars reset. If we put Aries on the ascendant, let's go through some house topics based on where this reset is falling in, based on your rising sign. Now, these are just going to be really, really quick interpretations because this video is already kind of long. So we're just going to bring in a few of the house topics, a few of the ideas that I had for this particular house. But think about this realm of this battlefield where Mars is on the battlefield, in that space where there is the need to protect, there is the need to destroy something, there is the need to, possibly take risks in some way, or there is some amount of energy and willpower that is really being directed into that particular house. That is where you're going to figure out kind of what this is representing for the next 2 years. So if we put Aries on the ascendant, first of all, one idea that I had for this particular position is that we see, of course, this reset happening in the 8th house. And Mars, if you're an Aries rising, of course, is your ruling planet. So this is really existential. But, in the 8th house, could there be some motif around gaining independence or freedom from the ties, from ties that you have with other people, or dependency that you have with other people? All of those 8th house kinds of things. But it's as if, Mars is trying to figure out, how can I gain freedom or independence from the bonds or the ties that I'm held to, or that people hold me to, whether that's, having to take care of somebody financially, or whether somebody is taking care of you financially, whether you're trying to figure out how to, pay down debt, or get off, subsistence from a government program or something like that. You get the idea that Mars is really speaking to how can I find liberation or freedom from the bonds that I currently find myself in. And that's definitely one idea that I had with a Mars reset in the 8th house. Now, it could also be speaking to something passing away, because the 8th house is connected to death. So you have this very scorpionic death motif, Mars, the exaltation of Capricorn, a place where the spirit leaves the body, and so on and so forth. In the 8th house, you could definitely see that there is something passing away at this time. A person or relative or family member could be literally passing away, but it could also just be something that you've been tied to for a while is passing away. Some way that you're bonded to a situation, circumstance, or person could be passing away. Some way in which you seek liberation or independence or freedom out of the bonds that feel constrictive to you in some way. That's one thing that I could see for Aries for the next couple of years here. If we go ahead and put Taurus on the ascendant, we are going to get this falling into the 7th house. One idea I had for Taurus rising was that maybe this is about a partner's need to reorient the activities of their lives. Oftentimes when we see planets doing things in the 7th, it might be speaking to a relationship that we have, something happening in that person's life more so than our own. But of course, things that happen in the lives of people that we're with affect our lives as well. But could, for instance, if you're in a relationship, could your partner be taking on a new course of action, or relationships themselves entering a phase of breakdown in some area that allows for the interjection of new energy, the revival or renewal of the relationship itself down the road? So this could be where you see a period of conflict, working things out in relationship that are somehow conflictual, and there's kind of like a destructive air around the relationship itself, but it's for the process of bringing things into that place where it's like there needs to be things broken apart. There needs to be destruction for the purposes of renewal to take place down the road. So that could be anything from obviously just getting out of a relationship, or it could be going through a process where your partner's going through something heavy, or the relationship itself goes through something heavy. But it doesn't mean that the relationship will end. It just means that there's an ending motif somewhere in the relationship. Something is passing away, but it could be the way that you relate to each other, or whatever it is. But it has something to do with the fact that there's some element in the relationship that needs to pass away, needs to be broken down so that it can be renewed in some way down the road. And that could take a couple of years to sort of go through all of those things. So that's what I'm seeing if you are a Taurus rising. Now, if you are a Gemini rising, this is happening in your 6th house. And one idea I had for Gemini is taking up a cause, advocating for a cause, things like strikes, beginning labor that lasts for a few years, or health challenges, or just challenges in general that lead to a focus on physical renewal. Of course, we get the sixth house being associated with things like strikes or worker strikes, or taking up a cause, like a warrior saying, I'm going to go out and change the world this way, or I'm going to stand up for this particular cause. This could be speaking to a period ahead where you become really amped up about a particular cause and you want to champion that cause and bring it forward and fight for it. But this could also just be speaking to some project that is really going to require a lot of hard work and labor to get done, and it's going to take a couple of years. And it may be about challenges just in general in some area of life, or in particular for health things like of the body or physical or mental, or any kind of long process of work and arduous kind of, bringing yourself to some empowerment or healthy state, as it were, down the road. You really get the sense with Gemini that it's that whole motif about what can I do to bring back motivation, to bolster willpower or energy. What things can I do that are going to bring me more energy, bring me more willpower, get me motivated? Things like that could be something that is really on the mind right now if you are a Gemini rising. Okay, now let's go ahead and we'll bring Cancer to the ascendant. And this is going to, where are you? There. This is going to bring Mars into the 5th house for the reset in Scorpio. One idea I had for Cancer is crisis, difficulties, or conflict around the topics of children that eventually lead to renewal. So it could be, again, like the 7th, this could be where your children are going through something challenging that is maybe them acting up or going through a kind of a destructive phase, but it's for them to find their own voice, find their own way in the world. It's for them to go through the darkness in order for them to come out the other end somehow found, or somehow renewed, or empowered, or something like that. It could just be speaking to what's going on in the lives of your children. Or it could be taking up new, exciting, competitive, dangerous forms of recreation or athletic exercise. I could see somebody like really getting into like rock climbing at this time. If you're a Cancer rising, like, just, man, I really just want to do this dangerous thing, this activity that keeps me exercising, gets me out there. There's risk. It's exciting. This could also be, the 5th house is connected to romance, like short-term love affairs or something like that. So this could be a time where there are some kind of, risky ways that we put our heart out there for short-term pleasure or enjoyment or something along those lines. Or it could be destroying old forms of art, so new methods can be invented. This is the place where you would see an artist just completely destroying their previous artwork for the purposes of trying to find their way through a new technique, an innovation that brings about a new way of doing art, something like that. If you are a Leo rising, this is going to place the Mars reset into the 4th house. And this one seems pretty simple. I think that this could be about eliminating or facing the darkness within home life or a living place. So this could either be the physical place that you live. It's like facing the darkness, facing the dark shadows of the corners, facing destruction or death or something in the home. So is it the house is falling down, or you need to move, and so there's a whole reset of location or something like that, but it's facing or eliminating the darkness that is either happening with people in the family at home, parents, fathers, something like that, working through something emotional with family members, or working something out with parents, maybe having to face some really challenging, difficult emotional things that need to be broken down. Or it could be about the physical structure of where you live, and somehow or another there needs to be something that is destroyed so that you can figure out how are you going to live, where are you going to live, that is somehow rejuvenates you down the road, somehow brings more of like a this is how I should be living kind of a moment. Now, one thing for Leo rising, having this in the fourth house was also said to be a place that you feel like you're supported. It's just your general feeling of I feel secure in who I am. I feel secure by the way that my life is supported in whatever way that is. So whether that is things that you believe in, people in your lives, the way you earn money, or whatever it is, that sense of like, I stand on solid ground. There's something below me that I count on to support me. This could be a moment where there is the need to go into that and destroy that somehow, or protect it, or take risks with it, or put energy into it so that it can become revitalized or rejuvenated or new. So if you're feeling like you're losing self-confidence, could be one thing that happens as Mars goes through the death portion of this reset. Feeling like, man, I don't feel confident in who I am or what I'm doing. This could be a moment where you go through a couple year process where it's about building up how you feel supported in your life and just in general. So that's one theme that you might see if you are a Leo rising, just feeling like I need to develop a different way of feeling supported in my life somehow. Okay, let's go forward and put Virgo on the ascendant. If you are a Virgo rising, this is placing the Mars reset in your third house. This one is really interesting to me. A period of protecting a family member might be something that comes in right now. I had this idea when I was thinking about this one. Now, for like a lot of people, this probably isn't going to be anywhere near what it is, but let's say that just as an example, let's say that you have a brother or something that, got addicted to opioids or something like that, and has been recovering for a while, but for some reason, it's as if they're entering a time where they seem more vulnerable to going through a relapse. So you have to spend a lot of time protecting them and making sure they're okay and looking after them. It could be something along those lines where you're having to really protect somebody that is like a relative or sibling or old friend or something like that. Some thing that you have to protect that is close to your family, close to your heart. Now, it could also be something like siblings that are like you need to eliminate toxic relationships with siblings. Like maybe there are certain people in your family that you need to cut out and say, hey, this isn't good for me. I don't want to be around these toxic people, even if they're family members, because a lot of times you get stuck with family members, right? And it's like, are you forced to, have them in your lives if at the end of the day you just have to face it, these people are just not good for me? It could be something like that. Or it could be entering a period where you throw your local environment or culture in the compost heap to rejuvenate the mind and everyday surroundings. This could be just a general, like taking your everyday situation and just saying, I'm over it. I'm going to move. I'm going to change jobs. I'm going to do something different, but I want to shake up the environment around me. I want to think different. I want to enter a new way of thinking. But before that can happen, I'm going to bring destruction to the environment around me, to the customs or etiquettes that are all around me. It's almost like a rebel against your environment that says, there are things in the environment that shouldn't be like this. And it would be better off if we could just destroy and get rid of them so that we could have an environment that is better suited. It could be like that. There could be some means in which being on that battlefield of destruction, fighting to protect, fighting to bring death, being in that dangerous place of darkness, somehow you need to face it in the everyday environment around you so that it's possible to bring rejuvenation down the road. Okay, if you are Libra rising, this is going to bring this Mars reset into the second house. a place we usually associate with things like finances and money and income and things like that. So, of course, we could see challenges around financial things or investments that lead you to reinvent your relationships to how you handle finances, how you save money, how you earn money, how you invest money. It could be a period that you go through where there's going to be a lot of energy put into developing new skills that earn you money. I could definitely see that for Libra Rising. It's like there's a period where there's just a lot of energy being focused on what can I learn? What skill can I develop? What do I have to do that increases my ability to earn, save, invest in, anything along those lines? What can I put a lot of energy and time into? What things could I put in my garden that will grow for me down the road? That's really what it is for Libra Rising, I think. Okay, if you are a Scorpio Rising, this is happening in your first house, a very powerful place, of course, because this is the house associated with the soul, with the body, with the mind, with the personality, with the identity. So, of course, this is, your ruling planet. If you are a Scorpio Rising, ascendant ruler, self-reinvention coming off of a crisis of identity or health issues is probably the number one delineation that I would give for this. The need to change something fundamental about who you are as a body, mind, personality, or soul. Or this could be when we see things happening in the first house, this can also represent a time where something new comes to us because the first house is us. So something new and unexpected entering your life now, something you work on, a person, an activity, etc. This could just be speaking to something entering your life in a big way right now, just broadly speaking. But when you have big things happen in the first house, one thing that can be about is, you always think about, okay, if it's a relationship, you're going to see something in the seventh house. But the first house is also a place where sometimes you see important people come into your lives or important situations beginning or developing at that time, because it's you. So it's like if you meet somebody really important, it might be that planet coming through in that first house that represents that really important thing in your life coming up now. So for Scorpio Rising, that could also be a pretty, it probably is one of the more likely possibilities, I think. We don't know what that is specifically, but again, it might have that Marsy quality to it. It could be somebody, if it's a person that is really independent, has a lot of energy, motivates you, gets you off the couch and moving or something like that, right? Okay, now let's go ahead and put Sag on the rising, and this is going to move this Mars reset into the 12th house. A period of recklessness or isolating independence preceding a self-reinvention. That's probably the most likely thing here. So I would say that for Sagittarius Rising, you sort of do want to be careful of destructive or hedonistic, untamed facets within yourself that make you almost like your own worst enemy at the end of the day, or like behaviors that cause other people to become your enemy. And one reason for that is because, the 12th house is a place that is often a place in our blind spot where we can behave in a way that causes people to work against us or become our enemies, or it's just that quintessential, like doing something that, you shoot yourself in the foot. And when it comes to that theme of like destruction or doing something on the battlefield or doing something risky, you do get the sense that it's like you're sort of inviting destruction, but potentially in a shadow side of yourself that causes things that happen that you may not even be aware that could have outcomes like that, right? It's just being basically reckless or something like that, or wanting independence, but doing so in a way that is really off-putting to people that are around you or something like that. So you have to be really careful of the destructive or hedonistic tendencies that are going to drive people away or bring unwanted, circumstances, into your life. That's one thing, because this is more of a challenging place to have a reset. But the idea that you're bringing in that destruction for the purpose of bringing rejuvenation. The rejuvenation is about finding a way back to yourself down the road. It's about re-empowerment in yourself and your life and your identity, but it happens down the road. And it's like it's almost like somebody that causes issues or problems, because that's the only way to sort of cause a chain reaction of things to start, the dominoes to start falling over, that force you out of a situation or force you to do a certain kind of action or take action in a certain way or something like that. It's like you blow something up on purpose because it gives you no other choice but then to work hard at becoming who you are. That's kind of what I was trying to get at with this. Now, a positive of this could be like a healthy this could be a healthy place to launch a deep dive exploration into eliminating anything unhealthy that is mental, on the mental side or physical side, that is just in your life in a certain way that is causing something to fester, something to get festering or infected. This is like, how do I purge this thing out of my body? How do I purge this thing out of my life? How do I get this out, amputate this or cut that off in order to get myself back to a place of mental and physical health? That could be the positive side of things, where you sort of go into that very investigative, deep dive Scorpio look into the shadows, the darkness, the destruction, the destructive things that you do, or the things that need to be eliminated or killed off or walked away from, or anything like that. That could be a process that is really vital to bringing rejuvenation for you personally down the road if you are a Sagittarius rising. Okay, if you are a Capricorn rising, this is going to bring this Mars reset into the 11th house, a place associated often with friends, with groups and associations, with work colleagues and things like that. This is interesting. I wonder if for Capricorn rising, if they're going to be befriending darker natured individuals, right? Those scorpionic, like mysterious people that sort of embody the darkness or destructive wildness, that brings a way of viewing the world in a way you never had before, or going through a process of destroying or eliminating relationships inside networks you belong to for the purpose of renewing what social circles or work environment you have. So again, it's almost like the Sagittarius rising, where you sort of invite in the darkness into social dynamics or group settings, almost as a way of making things collapse or bringing things into a place of destruction, where it's like, hey, what else can I do? I've just eliminated my connection to these people over here, but guess what? Now I'm going to find new people that are serving my social connection needs better. It's finding people that I resonate, that fit in my life better, or something like that, because maybe there's stagnance in your social circles, or maybe there's the need to sort of get out of a network or a group setting, like with work colleagues. Like it could be somebody that simply is really hard on their work colleagues, and then that leads to like, hey, maybe you should just think about moving to a different work situation or work environment or something like that. Maybe the people that you're around in the professional sphere aren't representing what you really want to do with your life. And there's this process of having to go through that discovery. It's not super obvious at the beginning, but the destructive behavior towards the people around you or within social networks sort of brings that discovery forward more and more as time goes on, until all of a sudden one day you realize, like, hey, I don't even have to be around these people that I don't vibe with. Like I can be with anybody I want. But it could be either befriending darker natured individuals that are really bringing in that scorpionic kind of unusual personality types that help you to see the world in a new way, or it could be going through a process of rejuvenating social circles down the road, but there first needs to be like the dismantling of the social circles or the situations you're in now or something like that. Okay, if you are an Aquarius rising, this is placing the Mars reset into the 10th house. This is a really interesting one. This is a very public place, so having a destructive or competitive attitude in your workplace, lighting your reputation up on fire, waging war against authorities or judgment of some kind, all for the purpose of trying to affect change in the world by removing corrupt elements you see as festering or dangerous. This isn't really interesting because, Aquarius Rising people have that Saturn rising sign that makes them forward-thinking, progressive, sort of looking ahead towards a better way, sort of idealistic, things like that. And it's almost as if a Mars reset in the 10th house, it's like you sense that there is a need to shake things up in the world around you, or fight for a cause in the world, or like it's like you go off to work and you're sort of bringing in more conflict or destructive, competitive attitudes that are really kind of ballsy in the workplace, and you end up lighting your reputation on fire or something like that. But you're waging war against something that is like an authority or something in the world that you're contending with because you feel like it shouldn't be in the world. Like there's some element or facet in the world or around you in the public sphere, in the workplace or whatever, that just feels like it shouldn't be there. The world would be better off without it. Let's bring the future forward in a way that is better, more idealistic in a way. And so in order to get there, it's like you have to set the world on fire a little bit, or you have to go into that dark sphere of destruction and competitiveness to gain or get ahead, or get what you want, or put energy into work in order to achieve goals or something like that. But it's really competitive, and it has that really ballsy kind of attitude backing it up, That's kind of like what I get for Aquarius Rising. Okay, last but not least, we have Pisces. If you are a Pisces rising, this is going to place the Mars reset taking place in the 9th house. And Mars in the 9th is a very interesting place to have a reset. Again, this might only happen once or twice or 3 times in your life where you have a Mars reset in this house. But your entire life long, the sign of Scorpio is occupying this very interesting place, a place that is associated with the higher mind, or experiences that expand and give us sort of like a higher calling, a connection to God. It was said to be the place of God, a place where people go on pilgrimages or something like that. So this is that battlefield analogy. You play on that battlefield in a place in your life that brings a kind of higher perspective or more principled philosophical understanding. So you get playing in the darkness or destructive expanses that eventually cause a renewal of higher principles. For instance, questioning one's faith or religion, reading the art of war. Like if you were going to get into philosophy right now, it would be like, I'm going to read Sun Tzu's The Art of War or something like that. Or it could be like taking an interest about the wars happening in the world, like this conflict right now in Israel with Hamas and things like that, in Palestine. This could be where you become like a spiritual warrior in a sense, somebody that is finding higher meaning with what's happening in the world, or what's happening as you believe in things, or what aligns with your higher principles, or discovering what those higher principles are, that has that really Marsy death, destruction, protection, advocation, adventure, risk taking, a dark quality to it, right? So taking an interest in war, something like that. Even taking a trip to war-torn areas, right? The ninth house associated with long-distance travel. Now, most Pisces risings will probably not do any of these things literally, but this would be the kind of theme that connects to one expanding personal philosophy around these death, darkness, destruction motifs as a means of renewal, coming to higher philosophy, higher mind, higher principles of living in accordance with your higher codes of ethics or principles or philosophy. In order to do that, there needs to be destruction around what you believe in right now, or an investigation into some darker things out in the world that brings some kind of spiritual reconciliation, that brings a kind of higher awareness or something along those lines. So that's a really, really interesting one. Okay, well, that's what I have for today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Please drop in the comments anything that you got from this. I would love to hear what you guys think about some of these interpretations. If I've hit the mark or if I'm way off, please let me know either way. But these are just some of my ideas that I had, and I'm sure there are an endless amount of variety of things that Mars resetting itself in a particular house could bring about or signifies. So I would love to hear what you guys are experiencing with this Mars reset. And we'll be back again next Monday for another Mantic Monday episode. Hope you guys have a great week and take care. Bye for now.